Welcome to the Break the Twitch podcast on minimizing distractions and doing more of what matters through minimalism, habits, and creativity. I'm your host, Anthony Ongaro. This is the penultimate episode of Season 2 of the podcast. I'm thrilled to bring you this conversation with Nora McInerny. Nora is the host of the wildly popular podcast, Terrible Thanks for Asking, the best-selling author of the book, It's Okay to Laugh, Crying is Cool Too. She's the founder of Still Kickin', a nonprofit that helps heroes going through difficult times, and the author of her latest memoir, No Happy Endings, which actually comes out on March 26th, just next week, and is available for pre-order right now. In this episode, we talk about grief, depression. We discuss feeling lost in your 20s and opting out of the shoulds and expectations of success highlighted on social media and in our culture. Additionally, we chat about prioritization, habits, and what to say when someone you know is going through something terrible. You're going to love this episode, and I am so excited to share it with you. And that brings me to the Break the Twitch member community, which is the community that makes this podcast possible and brings it to you advertisement and sponsor free. If you're looking to declutter your home, build a meditation habit, or reignite your inner creativity, we have an audio course for that. Each audio course walks you through small daily steps over the course of 21 days that will help you reach your goals. New members get a 20-minute welcome call with me just to help you get started. You can ask any questions you have and more. You can support the podcast and get all of these amazing benefits and more for just $9 a month. Go to breakthetwitch.com/community to find out more and get immediate access. But for now, let's start the show. Just check your phone.
Check your phone.
If there's
Never
a lull
not
in the
be
conversation.
checking your phone. Yeah.
Pretty much all the time. Lulls in conversation. If you're bored, if you don't like the question I'm asking.
Just check your phone.
Just check your phone.
Got a spare minute in traffic? You're driving? Check your phone.
Check your phone.
That's how I live.
Even there's funny. I saw something. Gary V, like Gary Vaynerchuk,
Yep.
Pretty intense dude. But he was talking about he always is looking to seeing what are people looking at to see kind of a market study of that sort of thing, and he's like, I was looking to see if anyone would ever notice a billboard anymore.
Yeah.
And he goes, no one's looking at billboards. In fact, no one's even looking at the road. Everyone's on their phone, just staring down at their lap. So that's
unless you're in Minnesota, in which case you can't not see the billboards because they're all owned by one man, Chris Lindahl, who is here to sell your house. Have you not seen those? They're everywhere.
Oh my
gosh. It's
just
him smiling with his arms outstretched. I don't know why, but he's really made a name for himself by buying every billboard.
You can't just
Every
buy
billboard.
one, I guess.
No, you have to buy them all.
You got to saturate the market.
Crazy. Yeah. And I'm like, how much are billboards? Should I get one? Like, should I just have an ad?
I saw something recently that was a pay, sort of like a, Google AdWords where it's like pay per click or Facebook ads, but for a digital billboard, and where you could literally select the billboard and you could buy impressions or ticks, they call them, or something. And so you could pay like $10 and be randomly put into the rotation on whatever picture you wanted, and you'd be on a highway. It seems like this is a new thing.
I need you to send me this immediately because I absolutely want to do that. And I want to have billboards for nothing, essentially.
Just like enjoy this
for numbers that don't exist.
Enjoy this picture of a moose that I'm just going to put here instead of an ad. It cost me $10. You're welcome.
You're welcome. Okay. Here's a treat.
Nora.
Yes.
I'm thrilled to have you in my house on the podcast.
I'm so glad to be in your house. You've done a very good job.
Thank you. The studio has been a project.
It's great.
That we're now leaving behind, which is
like all good projects.
Like all good projects, eventually
it's time to abandon them.
They become abandoned. Yeah. Well, welcome Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
I hesitate to start with, so how's it going? How are you?
Going? Oh, gosh.
That might be a loaded question.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that I have been recently just sort of like in a pit of depression where I work independently on a lot of my projects, and it's very isolating, I would say. And sometimes I feel like that's a benefit, right? Like you can't make things if you have a day job, it's much harder. It's much harder if you have a regular job to also make your own things, make a podcast, write books. But also when you spend that much time alone, I do think that there are possibly some negative side effects. I don't know if anyone has studied that, like the human's need for social interaction
Right.
and feedback, but I'm definitely been feeling that. Also, it's February in Minnesota. The sun's out now.
Yeah.
That's a rarity. So it's like there's only so much that a sad lamp can do for you. Like even a medical grade one that I bought at a medical supply store for many dollars. It's like, we're just in that long slog towards a hopeful spring someday. And that's how I am. Aren't you glad you had me over? What about yourself?
No.
What about yourself? What's going on with you?
I'm glad you asked. Thank you. There have been elements of feeling a similar darkness around being a little bit isolated, and we've been lucky to be away from Minnesota for a while for my first time in my whole life away from a Midwest winter.
Yeah.
And we came back a week ago, and I've shoveled 8 times in 5 days.
Yeah.
So it's pretty intense.
It's just brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of the catalysts of why we're experimenting with heading somewhere else for a while.
You will not be doing snow removal.
Yeah. Where we go, we will not be doing snow removal.
We'll not be doing that.
At least in any meaningful way.
Yeah.
It might be fake snow at some outside strip mall.
I mean, it could be. You might need to do that. But yeah, I don't know. It's just also when you make things that take so much out of you, like you just have this, or at least I do, like before something comes out, it's just sort of like, and I have a book that's coming out in like a while, but, or soon, like 5 weeks, but it sort of feels like you're like, chunk, 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 like the first part of a roller coaster ride.
Wow.
And you're like, I don't know if we're just going to stall out here or if we're going to be really going for it. You have no idea. And it's so largely out of your control. You've done the thing, you've made the thing, and now it's time for the world to be excited about it or not. And that's just.
Yeah. It's like that kind of are we
going to do it? I don't know.
Where are you on that roller coaster right now with the book coming out?
I don't know. Like that. I think that's the hard part. The book is written. It is out of my hands completely. It's available for pre-order. It's like just sort of this, you think that the hard thing will be writing the book, and it sort of is. But the hard thing really is just this anticipation between when you turn it in and when it actually comes out, where you're like, is this, now what? Like, I care about this book. I hope other people care about this book, but you really just don't know. So that's where I'm at.
Your first book came out. It's Okay to Laugh.
Yep.
Crying is Okay too. That came out 2 years
It came out in May
ago?
2016.
Okay.
Yep.
So just under three years ago. And so this is a follow-up.
This is a sequel.
This
is a sequel. So this book is called No Happy Endings, and it covers, the first book that I wrote in the 6 months after Aaron died. So it covers a pretty tight timeline of my life, and it was written really in like those chaotic first months of grief, which I'm so glad I did, because that's a real place to come from. And it is much easier to write about something from like a safe emotional distance of like 10 years, 15 years. Now it's been 4 years since Aaron died. So I'm not at that safe place yet, but my life has continued to move forward. And that means that I have fallen in love again, that I'm married to my current husband, as I like to call him. We have a blended family of 4 children, and our life is really, really good. And also, I really do miss Aaron. And also, this one beautiful family that we have had to come from 2 really broken places from a death and from a divorce. And those are two really brutal experiences for people to survive. So this book is for truly anybody who has gone through something difficult and still is, honestly.
What was it like writing this book with some more space between the first one and that period of your life and now with the marriage and the blended family? And what was how did the experience
How is it different?
change? Yeah.
The first, I mean, at least I've written a book before, so I can say that. I was very stressed out the first time I wrote a book about like the actual how of it. Like, well, how do you plot it out? Like, how do you complete it? In what order do you write it? Like, how do you format it? Truly, the things that are not as important as what you are writing, but I sort of distracted myself from the what by focusing on the how. And really obsessing over that and being like, is this like, should I have set it up differently? Should I have done whatever differently? And so the first draft that I turned in of that book, my editor, Julia, like basically threw away and was like, start over. You're writing how you think people want you to write about this. So instead, I want you to write it the way you're living it. And I want you to write it the same way that you would tell me about it, because that's why I signed you, because of the way that you are capable of talking about this. Don't worry about being like the most serious, the most saddest. Don't worry about what people expect you to write after your husband dies. Like, truly write it the way that you are. And I did that. I deleted everything and I started over. And the resulting book is very, very different from, I would say, a traditional memoir. And this time I knew exactly how I wanted this book to be. I knew from the moment I pitched it, the scene that would open it and the scene that would close it. I knew that. The middle stuff changed a lot. There's probably an extra 30% of book that ended up getting cut because I think you and I are afflicted similarly with this. Every idea is worth pursuing.
Oh boy.
So I did that. I did that, but in book form. And my editor was like, we're going to need it to not be an epic. Okay, we're going to have to tighten it up. So I have a lot of chapters for some future project. Yeah.
I always talk about my myriad of half-built houses from my 20s and
whole village.
Just a village complex of half-built houses that at one point I realized, especially in the early days of Break the Twitch, that it's really hard to live in a half-built house, even if you have 10 of them.
I'm going to write that down. I'm sorry. I mean, I know this will come out later and give me this piece of paper.
Please,
but,
please. That is for your use. I realized that for me, minimalism and learning to do less and focus on fewer things was my self wanting to work towards completion and like a change in or like a chapter finishing kind of thing, or a book turning the page to the next story.
I just love project. Starting things. Yeah. I do. I love being like, oh, now I'm going to focus all my energy here. And then, the middle part is not the fun part. You know what everyone loves? Like starting something and finishing something. The middle part sucks.
The best parts.
It's like, right? The middle part, you're like, oh, but it's not done yet. And I don't have the thrill of like planning it. Now I just have to do it. It's the worst. Oh my gosh. Yeah. The half-built houses. I also have like a small suburb of those from my every decade of my life.
I do too. Yeah. I believe there's a term called being a multipotentialite where you
I'm so sorry. Now you're on my podcast. Okay.
Where you have lots of interests and passions and things, and you end up learning. You love the learning curve of new things that are exciting, and sometimes the work gets to where it's like, I don't know what to do with this, and then something gets shiny and interesting, and I've saw a lot of that pattern.
Yeah, I would way prefer to do the shiny stuff.
Yeah,
way prefer it. Yeah, but it's also I'm just a person with a lot of ideas, and for a long time I didn't do any of those ideas because I was so focused on doing all of the things that I thought that I should do in life. So I ended up in a career that I truly had there are people who really, really want to and aspire to work in marketing and advertising. I didn't. My parents worked in advertising. I told them every day, like, I will never do what you do. It's so meaningless. No offense. Keep paying my school bills. But it's just so shallow and stupid. And like, I'm better than you. I remember having this conversation with my dad on the phone from college. And he was like, wow, I didn't know that providing for my family was so meaningless. Tell me more. And I was like, I don't mean it that way. I just mean like, there are kids who are starving and like you're selling whatever. And then I, of course, end up in it and it's not super fulfilling and it's really stressful. And I don't react well to manufactured stress, real stress. Like if you had a heart attack right now, I would fucking rule, dude.
You'd rock it.
I would. I'd be like, guess what? 911, this man's having a heart attack. Don't worry. Like you should come, but I'll keep him alive somehow.
Chest compressions already happening. Yes, check.
I was certified in CPR at age 16. I'm sure it's still in me. Real stress is fine for me, but fake stress, I was like, I can't handle this. I can't handle getting red exclamation emails that say like emergency. And it's about an ad that hasn't gone out yet that nobody's going to want to see anyways. Like I could not handle that and I was not good at it. And then I resented it. And there were people who in line who really wanted to do that work and like would bring like their whole heart to it. And I truly remember Anthony being 26 years old and saying to my friend, I mean, I've already done this for 4 years. So like, how could I possibly switch 4 whole years? I can't do the math, but that's like, what, like 20% of my life that far?
A sixth-ish?
A sixth
but
of my life so
much
far.
More of your adult life.
Correct.
A huge
like,
part, yeah.
Yeah, but it's still, I'm like, was I planning to die at 40?
Right.
Was I like, I don't know. How could I possibly switch careers? I'm 26. Whew. Yeah. Just doesn't seem possible. So I was very busy doing all the things that I should do. So I was always this person, right? I was always this person who had ideas, who wanted to do things that were creative. But I was also this person who thought like, oh, just stay in your lane, and you picked your lane. So you better just do these things and then go home and, I don't know, like go out with your friends, like drink 8 beers, fall asleep, wake up and do it again.
You said 2 of the magical words, which are should and expectation.
Yeah.
Tell me what you felt like were some of the shoulds and expectations around
life in general. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, you can take that as broadly or specifically as you'd like.
I mean, from a young age as a girl in America that like you should be presented in a certain way, right? So and that does shift. Like when we were in middle school, it's like you should be athletic. Like that was the way to be popular. Or you should be like athletic, but like also like girly. Like you should obviously be thin. Like don't try to not be thin. As a very ambitious kid, right? I had this, I'd written to our local newspaper back when Minneapolis had neighborhood newspapers. Like that was still a thing. And I'd written to our neighborhood newspaper and said like, you have all of these great writers, but you don't have a kid who's a writer on your staff, and there's so many kids in this neighborhood, so you should hire me. And when I didn't hear back within 2 weeks, I wrote the most aggressive letter, like calling the editor like a coward for not like replying to me. My dad was like, I would maybe not send this. And I was like, guess what? Nailed it. And he was on vacation. So when he came back to 2 letters, he was like, I'm so sorry that I insulted an 11-year-old. Let's talk. That was my first paying job. I was a columnist for the Minneapolis Southwest Journal.
Yeah.
But when I got to high school and our receptionist had found the column and like put it up, like, look at our incoming freshmen. I was so horrified. And I knew like that was not going to be cool. Like it was not cool to strive. I was not cool at this school. And so I like ripped it down. I stopped doing it. Like I just made myself into somebody's girlfriend, and I made myself into a very good student. And I remember having this conversation with my dad in high school where I was so proud of my GPA. And he said, all this tells me is that you're good at following directions. This doesn't tell me that you're smart. And I was like, you're wrong, because it's a 4.0. So beg to differ. This is spoken like someone who never got on the honor roll. And my dad was right. but I'd already sort of like found myself into that path where the path was appearing and I was not ready to go to college at all. Like in no way. I had excellent grades. Did I have an amazing ACT score? Yeah, I did. Thank you, Anthony. Ask me what it was, 34. But was I ready to go to college? No, like not at all. Yeah, and I got to college and I was so depressed and I was so lost and I hated it. I hated it. And that's a lot of money for something that you hate. I was just miserable. I think when I think about most of my adult life, it was misery, but with this veneer of like success. Like I'd gotten into a good school. I got a scholarship for half my tuition. I got good grades. I got a job, but I was truly miserable. I'd never stopped to think for even 1 second about what I was actually called to do in any way. It was like, well, I can do this. And someone told me to do this, so I'll do this. Like it just never crossed my mind to actually build an interest. I lived my entire 20s without having any interests, like none, no interest. If somebody on a date, if somebody asked me like, what are your interests? I would have been like, okay, aggressive. My friends, like I love going out. I love to like party. I watch TV. I watch a lot of VH1. Anything else? Like I had no, like, like I just didn't have any like hobbies or I didn't do anything. Like I didn't do anything. This whole world, like nothing interested me because I was so busy, like getting to work at 7, staying till like 7 or 8, going out to like dull off, the depression and then going to bed. Everybody had a job that they felt like whatever about. Like no one I knew was like, this is exactly what I want to be doing.
I am in so my life
fulfilled.
Force.
Yes.
Like it is perfect.
My God, it's so wonderful.
Yeah.
And like I do think your 20s, I get a lot of messages from people who are like, well, I'm in my 20s and I feel like so lost. And it's like, well, yeah, like you probably should, but like I could not identify myself as lost. So I think if you can at least notice I am lost, this is not fulfilling, this is not right. That's a step. And I'm not even saying that like that your job has to be what fulfills you. For most people in this world, the vast majority of people, it's not, and that's okay. If you have something else, like you just have to have something that you like deeply care about, or like, what are you doing? Watching VH1. That's my answer.
Yeah, that's the whole thing with should and with the pressure put on, I think, women especially. Just what you told me about pulling down the thing because of what I think is probably a societal expectation, even at that age, of peers, but what has been baked into not allowing people, and I think more specifically women, to be really into stuff.
Yeah. And like be like ambitious at that age. I was like, oh yeah, I want to be like a published author. I want to be a writer. I want to be Nora Ephron. Right. I was like, I just want to write. I want to make stories. I want to entertain people. And like, I can remember the first person I saw like laughing at it and me being like, oh, that's not, I have to shut that off. Like I have to shut that off. I have to just focus on like fitting in, end of list. And now I think the pressure is completely different. This is also a pre-Instagram society, right? This is like even in my 20s, Instagram was like not really a thing. Not really. It was like scroll back to my first photo. It was like 2 likes. Aaron, myself.
Yeah.
Liked my own photo. Not ashamed of it. But now it's almost the opposite. Now it's like this massive, like get a hustle, like girl boss babe, like do all the things sort of culture. And I think that's so damaging in its own way. To be like, oh no, you have to do a thing, and like then make it a business and like make money off it. And it's like, you don't have to. Like you literally don't have to. But when you're watching all of these other people do that or appear to do that, because the reality is different from the presentation of that life, it starts to feel like, well, if I'm not doing all those things, like, am I doing anything? Like, is what I do important? Does it matter at all? Because I'm not there. I'm not doing those things. I don't have a bajillion Instagram followers. I'm not like an influencer. I don't have like an email list. I don't even know what any of these things are, but they're all ephemera. Like they're not like a necessary aspect of life. But I feel like people almost think that they are, like that it's required. I'm like, you don't have to.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. No,
like,
simply, yeah. It's the whole thing with the internet is amazing, especially in the entrepreneurship space. And I resonate with what you're saying about the maybe the male equivalent of like the boss babe kind of thing. And I think there's this shaping of like, if you're not on that hustle, building something, it's like, what are you doing? And there's just so many ways to exist. And there's just so many ways to find some level of fulfillment in different ways. And there's just no one solution. I have two different friends who have deleted their online existence.
Does that in some ways just feel like a weird version of heaven to you? Like, that is a fantasy of mine, I have to say, where I'm just like, select all, delete, bye. And then I just go about my life.
Yeah, just whatever.
Just whatever.
And it's an interesting thing, right? One of the greatest ironies of Break the Twitch, a site about, stepping away from screens, like using them intentionally, but being more in this situation, is that we're on our Amy and I are on our computers like 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
And we are probably less flexible now than we've been in the past. And again, it's a hard line to walk because again, this is like work that we've chosen, we're trying to build because it's the underlying things of this are meaningful, and it's how I feel like I get to help people suffer a little less than I did in traditional education. And I like dropped out of college. I really struggled in a lot of ways. I was not ready for college.
Which is not like a thing people get to say, And I have a 17-year-old now. I'm like, dude, it's okay. Like, you should take a year to breathe, take a couple like community college classes, like find a path for yourself. But to just like dive in like that when you're 18 and spend a butt ton of money that you don't even have yet to basically take on a mortgage when you're 18, that's bonkers. Yeah,
it is crazy. And that's a whole other.
We're going to hear for 3 different podcasts. Okay?
We're going to have 3 follow-ups. But it is interesting. And I was working with John, a coach for about a year and a half, who really helped me in a lot of ways. But one thing that always comes up for me with him, my time working with him, was literally anytime the word, so I really should be doing this now. And he's like, should according to whom or who? I don't know. Never get it. You're like, I'm like, oh, well, I guess I never really considered that. No one actually, like, I don't think anyone's expecting that of me. Right. Except for this perception of what I felt like I needed to fit into. And this also comes from now having this thing online where you need to stand out. Yeah. And after a life of schooling and stuff where all I wanted was to fit in. I wanted to just be a part of it. I wanted to be a part of the social thing, and I just wanted to fit in, didn't want to stand out. And then I got out into the job market. Yeah. And this thing of entrepreneurship and building a blog and a YouTube channel and stuff. And it's like, no, I'm still conditioning myself to like fit into what is there. It's weird. That there's like a formula for it. And the hard thing is that everybody is selling you a formula for this too. Like, everybody is selling you the idea that to be like a successful personality or entrepreneur or writer, there are steps that you can take that will get you to whatever place you've fantasized about being. And the thing about that is that I fall prey to it. I never have once like tried any of these things, but I do take my eyes off my own paper all the time. I like look around constantly and I'm like, am I doing this wrong? Am I doing this thing wrong? And as a result, I have never once enjoyed any accomplishment. Not once. Not once. I can never say, I wrote a book that sold really well. Just be like, well, but it wasn't, it's not like her book. So, I don't know. I just have not. It's like, you cannot let things
sink in at that level when you are so focused on where you'd like to be, you can't even enjoy where you are. And I find that like in myself right now, I'm like, oh my gosh, like what am I reaching for? Because if you told 26-year-old me or 22-year-old me that I would be here, I would have been like how? Like, because I already gave up. I'm 22. I already gave up and took a job in PR. So that's crazy. And then I would have to be like, well, your husband died first. But it's a long story. And you'll get,
There's a bit of a journey.
you're going to have some,
I did a TEDx talk 2 years ago, and I borderline blacked out during the talk. I have no idea what I said.
Time. Yes. Yes.
But I remember stepping off stage with so much buildup to that moment, to anxiety going up to that moment, and then it happening and stepping off stage, walking back to where Amy was sitting in the relative darkness of the auditorium and just feeling nothing.
Yeah.
And 4 years earlier, if you had said, Anthony, you're going to do a TEDx talk about something you're incredibly passionate about and want to help the world with, and you're going to do pretty okay at it, and I would be psyched. I would be so psyched. And in that moment, I felt like, okay, well, that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Because you should have a TEDx
I don't have
talk
a
at this
published
point.
book
so,
yet.
Right. I just did what I was supposed to do.
Yes.
Okay. So like, I won't applaud it when really,
ambition with gratitude. I think it's gratitude. I don't know.
I think it's even just
celebration of the steps, the process. I've always struggled with this.
Oh, same. I don't know. But successful people, like people who I really admire. I have a mentor named Susanna Grant. She's an Oscar award-winning screenwriter, and she's a wonderful human. And she told me after something that I did not think was a big deal, she was like, no, you need to celebrate this. You need to celebrate every good thing that happens. You just need to get in that habit. I'm like, okay, I guess I could, but it's also, hard to do because like what next? Like to me, I truly am only as good as the next thing I do. So I think the answer is deep therapy, like just some real deep work on ourselves and what we're trying to fill, which is probably like a hole that our parents left. Let's just blame it on them.
And the institutionalized education.
All of it.
All of it. I was terrible in school. And so I had a very different, I was a very like C and sometimes B student.
Yeah.
And even in choir, like I loved choir and I was in different, like I was in the a cappella group and the big one.
Yeah.
That was my area of like, it's like keeping me grounded in the things that I really struggled with elsewhere. I feel like that taught me that I was just, the way that I was working was just never going to be okay. And like, sure, you got an A on this test, but like, that's what you're supposed to do.
Exactly.
Like, that's just what
I know. And how I like pass that down to my kids is really, I can already see the cycle.
We all mess up our children.
The cycle continuing. I can see the cycle continuing. And I noticed it in our 12-year-old, and she's very achievement oriented, which I also was, and grade obsessed. And you're in 7th grade, and your grades don't matter to life. They're not. They're of no consequence. I just want you to learn and enjoy yourself. I don't want you up at night with heart palpitations over whether or not you're going to get an A. So I paid her $50 last semester to get a B.
No. Okay. Interesting.
Like, I don't care what class it is, but I need a B on that report card. So she did it.
Yeah.
The world did not end.
No.
But like, I spotted that. I spotted that same, sort of obsession forming. And I was like, we have got to break that now. Like, we really do.
Yeah.
We do.
At that age, especially, it feels like it's everything.
Yeah.
Like, this is it's the equivalent of showing up to like a job later on, but you're there. And if you're like, oh, here's the requirements, here's what I have to do, or like study for this. And then it just feels so
it does. Yeah.
Like young love. It just feels, it just feels like everything is right there and it's never going to like, if this doesn't work out,
it will never be
gonna...
unimportant. It will never be unimportant. You don't want to like minimize what they're feeling, but also I'm like, I want them all to know that there is more, you have more value than just whatever comes home every quarter.
Yes. And I really want parents, I don't have kids of my own yet, but I really want parents to know too, that just because their kids are struggling in school does not mean they're not super capable human beings.
Yes.
In lots of different creative ways. And especially now, I'm given so much hope by the current environment of self-publishing, of like YouTube, of the ability to stand out if you can like create something wild.
Right.
And so I think that's really good too.
There's so many different ways to learn now, which you should be heartened by. There's so many different kinds of schools that really understand that. And so that's been very interesting to me too. Because, we're not all good at like sitting down and following directions and getting a gold star. I was, but I mean, it turns out that might not be important. FYI, all college seniors watching.
Let's talk about the book writing process.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the book writing process. I'd love to know, I just saw that you have written 3 books in the time of what most like humans
12 months,
write one.
Yes. I am a fast writer, I will say. Like I can sit down, I can write 2,000 words a day. It's not a problem. That's like a pretty good pace for me, I would say. And so if you write 2,000 words a day, you've got a book pretty quickly. Yeah. Like if a memoir is using around 90,000 words, 70 to 90,000, short novel is like anywhere between 50 and 70. So writing 2,000 words a day is
a month and a half for the first draft.
Truly. So it's, and I've always kind of been that way. Like it's not as if every single day I write 2,000 amazing words, but sometimes I do and I always get something out. But I honestly think you told me this. So I'm just going to repeat your wisdom back to me, but we're going to attribute it to me. It's called plagiarism.
Perfect.
Get with it. So I think that you told me that you're supposed to do the thing that requires the most of you first, like that requires your most creative brain, like get that out of the way first. And I am not naturally a focused person. Like I'm naturally a person who's like, I'm going to sit down and do this, but then you know what? Actually, I really want to do my YNAB, youneedabudget.com, my literal obsession. Love it. I'm just gonna balance my budget, just gonna make sure that's okay. You know what? I was just thinking that maybe Ralph would like to play T-ball. I'll go look up when those start. When do you think T-ball starts? And I'm also gonna email one of my friends to see if her kids wants to do T-ball, which also reminds me, I used to play softball with my friend Erin. I should text her. Like I will just immediately get very, very far off the path. So I have to put a lot of controls in for myself. So I wake up really early. I used to also here's the difference between writing the first book and the second book, to get back to your original question. Yeah. The first book, I was in shock. I had one child. I didn't sleep at all. So it would take me till like 2 or 3 in the morning to fall asleep. And then I would sleep till like 9, maybe 9:30, maybe 10. I had a toddler, but he would just lay next to me until I woke up. Like such a bleak life. And then I'd walk him next door to daycare, and then I would come home and just like wonder if I should buy food or something. Maybe I should eat. And I would stare at my computer. Like it was just everything was so hard, which I now recognize as shock and as depression, but I didn't at the time. So I had no routine. I had no habits. And now I'm just a highly habited person because I follow you. So I wake up like between 5:15 or I always wake up at a weird time. It's like 5:09, let's say, between 5:09 and 5:14. So it's on an odd, it's never on a 0 or a 5. Yeah. I'll just say that. And then I'm up. I sit in front of my sad lamp for a while. I write in a little journal. I wake up the big kids. We go to the gym from 6 to 7. I get home. My husband, Matthew, has coffee and breakfast ready. I'm extremely spoiled. Also, the difference is now I have a partner. Different environment. And we get the little kids out the door. He takes them to school. The big kids get off to school. And then I'm home. And I'm alone for about 2.5 hours. But I don't look at my phone at this point during the day. I don't check my email. I just open up what I'm writing. And I write for 2 hours. and I drink coffee, and I might like fiddle with my little fiddle things, my little it's like this ball, but it's not a ball. It's like made out of joints, those things.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing.
Yep, the expanding things.
Got a whole thing of those on my desk, which the kids are like, these are not your toys. Like, don't you dare touch this. Okay, it looks like silly putty. It's not.
Sure, it's multicolored and bright.
Right.
But
not for kids.
No.
Not for kids. It's a kaleidoscope. That's a grown-up thing. Okay? Set it down. So I do that for about 2 hours, then get ready for my day. And I go, if it's a day that I'm recording Terrible Thanks for Asking, then I go to American Public Media and I work on that until probably 2:45 or 3. Then I go pick up Ralph from school if I can. And then I get dinner started. Matthew finishes it because I have lit many things on fire, including McDonald's flames. And then we hang out for a little bit at night, and we usually like watch something, but I end my day by reading always, and like writing in a journal and planning out my next day. But I have a few habits that I know will also like make me feel better. They don't have to be done at any specific time, but if I do my Calm app, like I know that helps. If I like get 8 hours of sleep, I know that helps. If I call a friend during the day, like make an actual connection, not a text, like have an actual phone call with a person, that helps. And so I just try to do at least like one thing from that list. So I like check those off the list. But if I don't get 100% of this, like if Ralph throws up at 4 a.m, and so I'm going to be with him instead of going to the gym from 6 to 7, like I just pick up where I can.
Yeah.
I'm not like, oh, now I'm going to have to go to the gym at like noon instead. I'm like, maybe not today. Like, okay, so now where am I in my day? What's possible? I'll just do that. But previously it was impossible for me to have any habits because it had to be all or nothing. So I had to have like 100% gold star of every day, or it was failure. Like why even try? Like, I guess I'll just go to Target and walk around and buy stuff.
This just came up in a podcast episode recently about consumption and like veganism and different things, about how when we expect perfection of ourselves, it pretty much just wipes the table clean. Like eat butter, but eat a meal without meat, or like that was kind of the idea. Is that when we expect perfection of ourselves, it's almost impossible to change and hold ourselves accountable to that. It is impossible. It's perfection, and that doesn't exist.
Yep. And it also like just sets up so much tension for everyone else in our lives. To be like, these are the things I have to do. It has to happen at this schedule. Well, like life truly does not care about your plan or your schedule, like at all. So I had several days like that this week alone where I was like, well, I did my best.
Did you recognize a point where you embraced that transition?
I can't say that there's like a moment, but this is definitely something that has happened within the last year, for sure, because Matthew and I met in 2015, and then we were married maybe in like 2016, 2017. I honestly can't remember. And that's a big change, right? It's a big change to like move it, to go from 1 kid to 4 kids, to go from dead husband to like dead husband and a living husband, and to go from, at the time I was doing a lot of freelance, copywriting and marketing writing on top of, trying to build Terrible Thanks for Asking, and on top of writing books, because it was good to have, extra income. And I had no routine. I had no plan. Every day was completely different. And Matthew is a person who goes to work every day at a job and gets paid every 2 weeks. And God bless him for that. He also knows when the kids need dental appointments. He knows the last time they had a bath. I truly couldn't. I smelled them today and was like, have we? He's like, oh no, they're due today. I'm like, oh, good.
Are you clean?
Good. Yeah. Are you? Yeah. One of them was like, you're smelling yourself. I was like, one, true, but not the topic at hand. Okay. Because I can wear deodorant and you are a stinky 6-year-old. So not to name names, but he smells.
Not to call out any specifics.
Yeah. Not to call out any specific kid, but yes, they all smell. But I definitely took a page out of Matthew's book, and it was heavily influenced by Matthew and the fact that I could live like that forever. I really could. I could fly by the seat of my pants and be like, I think it's fine. I'll get something for dinner on the way from somewhere, except that I forgot that it was also double booked for a meeting. So actually I'm not coming home and you're going to have to get all 4 of the kids because I'm not going to get any of them. And he can't live that way. He can't live that way. The kids didn't love living that way. So it was definitely born of necessity that was pointed out to me gently, which was maybe don't be like this. Like maybe don't. And maybe then I would be less stressed out. And I was very skeptical. I was like, no, I cannot be bound by any laws or rules or like, I'm not like you. And I was like, no, I am. Like we all are basically. Like we all do need some sort of rhythm to our lives. And it doesn't have to be the same one. And doesn't have to be the same every day, but we do have to have some guidelines, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and having flexibility within those guidelines. Mm-hmm. I have a similar story in my own relationship where I definitely am much more of a in the moment. Mm-hmm. It's a blessing in some ways because I'm just kind of here now. Mm-hmm. I'm not worrying too much about next week or it comes and goes. But Amy is definitely more on the side of like structure, regimented. And so I'm merging into that and her finding flexibility and me finding more of that structure and finding what happens when you actually create the structure, you end up with what you're talking about, somewhere in the middle where it's not a big deal if you have a kid throw up in your example,
right?
At 4 a.m. and you miss the gym that day.
Like my therapist was also like the things that you're describing, there's no reason why. Like I was sort of stretching my work day out too, which happens when you work on your own and you work from home. All of a sudden you're like, it's 8 p.m. Why am I like writing emails? My therapist was like, you don't have a regular job because you wanted to not do that. And yet you're doing that. So what are you doing that's stretching your work out that much that you can't finish it in order to pick up your kid from daycare? Like, what is it? And I was like, well, it's fucking around on the internet. Thank you for checking. Obviously, like having a timer on my phone. I don't have an Apple phone. I have a Android, but I have, they have this thing called digital well-being, and you set a timer for like problem maps for yourself, basically. So for me, that's Instagram. And once you hit your timer, it like you can't open the app. It's gone.
Yes. There's similar features on iOS now.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And also to look at how many times you look at your phone is gross. But that's where all my time was going. And my time was going to not having a schedule. Felt like it was flexibility, but it wasn't, because I was trapped in whatever people wanted of me too. So I was, I'll go here for this and then here for this and here for this and da-da-da. And yes, I'll have coffee with you. And yes, I'll do this. And, because I want everybody to like me, obviously. But also then I don't have any time to work. And so I'm doing the most important work that I say is so important to me, like before I go to bed. Like I have not stayed up to write in a year, I don't think. Like, no, I haven't. It's done. It's done. My day's work is done. And I was basically just not prioritizing.
Yeah, I'm feeling that. I'm feeling your words. It is interesting how Tim Ferriss, I think, talks a lot about how the task expands to the time we give it. And I think he was speaking more broadly about if we say this needs to be done in 6 weeks, we will find a way to spend 6 weeks working on this thing versus 2. But I think that also applies to a macro or a micro level of when we allow ourselves to be available to work all day, we end up just working on and off all day instead of condensing these things and having it. And that's something I've talked about this since season 1, but I am actively working on just condensing it so that there's clear segments of time when we're not doing this stuff. We're right in our house right here. Amy's desk, my desk.
Yeah.
And we're just
the dishwasher. Should I empty it? It's like that's what I would do too. But I truly shut the door to my little office that used to be our dining room, and then like I'll have like my day blocked off in a way. So when I'm done writing, then today I was working on like my side project, Cafeteria Christian. like a podcast for like people who are not like really religious, you know. It's a podcast for non-religious people, honestly, about spirituality and God. Also, just being a decent person is really what the podcast is about. I'm really great at elevator pitches, but today I like did all the things for that podcast that I record on Sundays after church.
Yeah.
But it's like normally I wouldn't do that. Normally, if I were doing this 2 years ago, I would have done that Saturday night, like panicked and been like, oh God, oh God, oh God. And it just would have sucked. And it feels crappy. It feels so much better to just be like, oh yeah, I'm just getting things done and not I don't give myself to the urgent, because nothing is really that urgent because I've planned for it. You know, like sometimes urgency takes the place over like importance in your life. It's very easy to have happen. And it's very enticing too, because you're like, oh, here's a shiny new, I can solve this problem. And then you're really just like adding like 9 problems on the back. I don't know the full exchange rate, but it's definitely adding more.
Yeah. It feels like increasingly the urgent. This is a big thing with the I know like productivity systems and different things is like the quadrants, and you have the essential and urgent, the inessential and urgent, the really essential and not urgent.
Yeah.
There's like the quadrants or whatever. And increasingly, I think with social media, the way that it works, the way that our devices work, it's creating that, you see, like the fake stress.
Yeah.
It's generating that feeling in us of this false sense of urgency to check, to respond, to do these things. And we're sort of trapped in this little thing unless we step back, and that's email, that's different things. And it's a weird time with all this for everyone who's in any way involved in having a social media account.
Yeah. And I think that's also something to like keep in mind and sort of reinforce for other people that you're communicating with, is like saying like, this is not urgent, you know, or like, you don't have to reply to this right away, because when things are delivered to us right away, like it sort of almost feels like I'm handing this to you and now it's yours, like right now, like, so deal with it now. At least when I get something like that, I'm like, oh God, like if I don't reply like right now, are they going to think I'm rude? I'm like, well, honestly, like I don't spend more than 45 minutes a day on Instagram. So like I'm probably not going to see it. But if I do, I don't know, maybe I'll get to it and maybe I won't. But I used to spend hours and hours trying to like be a completist in that way when it's not possible. To
kind of bookend at least the discussion of the book and the one that's coming out in just very soon, probably next week by the time this is coming out. Who's the book for?
The book is for anybody who has gone through something difficult. So it's not as if you need to have a dead husband to be able to relate to it. I think the entire world is built from people who are living a different version of their life than the one that they expected, and people who feel conflicted about the fact that they are suffering and also grateful, or that they're hopeful but also sad, maybe, that they're living all of these feelings all at once, when really we all are. And the world is filled with complicated people and complicated families, and this is a book for those kind of people.
There's something that I've been wanting to ask you, and in this format, I am thrilled to get to share this answer with anyone listening.
Yeah.
I have always personally struggled with finding the best way to support people when they either A, share something difficult that's been going on or is going on, and B, just are going through something difficult.
Yeah, join the club, because that's everyone. So one, feel better. Everybody feels that way. Everybody feels that way. And it's not as if, you know, I lost my husband and I was like, wait, hold on. I know exactly what to say when you tell me you're getting a divorce.
Sure.
Like sometimes I don't. Like I wish that there were just sort of like one key phrase to give you or one thing to do. But the thing is that you have to be humble about it. And that's the hardest thing for people to do. The reason we rush to fill that silence, and the reason we rush to give some sort of comfort to them or advice, right? Or to do something is because we are so uncomfortable with someone else's discomfort and really with our own. We're so just not ready for that. And the thing is, like, you don't have to know what to say. You can say, I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry to hear that. Like, you can admit that. Like, I've never met someone who's going through that. I will also tell you that when you're wondering what should I do for a person who's suffering, the answer is to do a thing. Like, pick a thing that you can do, you are capable of, you have the time to do, and that you actually will, and then do that thing. Just do that thing. And don't expect a thank you. In fact, my favorite thing to do is to do something for someone either anonymously or to say, do not send me a thank you note. Do not. Just enjoy this thing, whatever it is. Enjoy this experience, whatever it is, and no thank you note needed. No one is going to know what they need if they haven't done something before. Your mom only dies once. You know, even if you have two moms, like the one mom, each mom will only die once. Every single act of suffering in your life is completely unique. Like, how would they know what they need? So don't say, like, what can I do? Like, they don't know what you can do. Like, they don't know what you personally will do, and they don't know what they need. So I wrote a whole book about this conversation with TED Books called The Hot Young Widows Club. And it's really it's truly like a practical guide to grief and suffering for people who are going through it and for people who are around them. So it's a really short book. It's the kind of thing that you can give to someone who's gone through something hard or is going through, or if, like, for example, if my husband dies again, I'll give you this book. When my new husband dies, I'll give you this book. Being like, this is how you talk about this. This is what you do. So, but truly everyone struggles with this. And we're all so afraid of doing or saying the wrong thing that we just don't do anything. And that is the most damaging thing you can do, is to say nothing or do nothing or disappear.
So don't disappear.
Don't disappear. Do a thing. Do a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The discomfort is real. I mean, there's compassion. You care about the person. And most often I find myself at this point, when someone shares something difficult with me, just saying, thank you for sharing that with me.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate you, trusting me enough to share that. And I'm sorry that you're going through that. Yeah. But beyond that, I often feel like I don't know that I'm being supportive enough, or that I feel an insecurity almost in a way.
Yeah.
And I, when I share other things too, it's difficult. You don't necessarily want advice. You don't, it's just kind of like you're in it. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, okay, so here's what I'll say. If you want to give you specific examples, yesterday was Valentine's Day, and I just had this memory of Aaron died like maybe not even 3 months before Valentine's Day. Now, Valentine's Day was not a big pillar of our relationship. It's not like I was like, oh, Valentine's Day alone, like, how will I survive? Like, every day is hard when your person is dead. Like, Valentine's Day is just like another day that is difficult, but he was such a thoughtful person and he was a really good gift giver. I did not give a rip about Valentine's Day, but he did. And he always gave me something amazing and like just a really good gift giver. And I came home that day after he had died on Valentine's Day, and there was a huge flower arrangement. And I have no idea who it was from. It said from Ralph. He was 2 at the time, so I know he was not that thoughtful. But it was like, oh, wow, like someone thought of me that day. Like, they thought of me. It had been months at this point. Like, most people were no longer, checking in every day or checking in at all. And I got this thing that was like just a reminder of, oh, I remember. Like, I remember that you lost Aaron. And I don't know who sent that. I imagine that they had their own little Valentine's Day celebration that they were going to plan for themselves and their person, but they thought of me. And that's such a specific thing. And also not like, you have those opportunities to just remember what someone is going through, even if it was a long time ago, and to just say like, oh my God, I remembered the story about your dad. Like, your dad died 10 years ago, but I remembered the story about him in 5th grade. And like, he called our coach a bitch. That was so funny. like those are the things like where you can just remind a person that you remember. Gift cards are also great. Like, like grief is expensive. It's truly like America's garbage. It's a terrible place to be sick or have someone you love die. And so, I mean, yeah, people have very basic needs to be filled, which is crazy. We're in the richest country in the world, but
yet here we are.
Here we are, crowdfunding our way through suffering. It's great.
Something like a third of all crowdfunding things are medical.
At least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your answer.
Yeah.
And that is helpful. And that kind of perfectly ties into one of the things that you do. And one of the things you've done, which I would love to ask you about, Still Kickin'.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your work with that has been profound. And it's one of the shirts I'm wearing right now.
Oh, man, me too. Whoa,
awesome. We're all kitted out. But tell me about the inspiration for Still Kickin' and the work you're doing with that now.
Yeah. Still Kickin' is a nonprofit, and it was Aaron's idea. So Aaron's my dead husband. He died of brain cancer, but the day that he had a seizure, he was wearing this old thrift store shirt, crackly letters, Kelly green with white crackly letters that said Still Kickin'. And we thought that was hilarious. We were like, oh my God, you had a seizure. What a loser. We were so oblivious to the danger that he was in. We had no idea he had a brain tumor. We had no idea it was stage 4 brain cancer. We just thought it was so funny that he had a seizure at work, went to the ER on Halloween, and was wearing this ironic t-shirt. I just remember walking into the ER and being like, dude, we have to hand out Halloween candy tonight. Like, you better get out. Okay. Because we're a couple and we just moved in together and we're going to do a couple thing tonight. And so I need you to get up. But that shirt was ironic until it wasn't. And Aaron had always wanted to, like basically recreate this shirt and sell it and give the money to something. Like, it was like this sort of vague idea, but not really. And, he had a seizure in 2012. Like, the internet was a very different place. And I remember I bought the URL for him, and our friend Punchy helped me make like, a mock-up of a Tumblr, and I like gave it to him. I was like, we'll make your idea happen. But we did not have money to start something, to like buy t-shirts, to like, we did not have the time to manage stock and orders, and there were not as many turnkey ways to do things as there are now. I know that seems crazy because it was like 7 years ago, but there really wasn't. Yeah. It was so different. And when Aaron was dying, we had the t-shirts made with Cotton Bureau, which is a t-shirt site, and they do pre-order model. So you have to hit a minimum order, and the minimum order was 12. And I thought, oh my God, so there's 6 people in my family. I'll order 6. I'll order 2 for you. Like, we'll make it. And we sold like 500, and then we sold 3,000, and then we sold 5,000. And the money at that time went to the Masella Foundation for brain cancer research. But Aaron had always known that, that he was more than brain cancer, and that there's all kinds of suffering all over our world and all throughout our country, that there are many, many different ways for life to kick you in the face. And he was really sensitive to that. And the fact is, we were lucky. Aaron did not have life insurance, but we were 2 middle-class white people from Minnesota. And so our crowdfunding campaign did really well, and it replaced Aaron's salary for a year, and it let me, pay for his funeral. Funerals are very expensive. It let me pay his medical bills. It let me pay my mortgage after I spontaneously quit my job after he died because I could not function. And not everybody had that. And it took me a while. It took me about a year after he died to I think it took me 6 months, but it took me a while. Like, and Jay Finelli, who started Cotton Bureau, was such a good dude. And I remember him sending me a message and being like, I'll print this shirt for as long as you want me to, but it could be something else. And when you're ready, just let me know, and I'll help you however I can. Wow. And he really did. He was like, this is our printer. This is our warehouse. This is how this works. This is how you can set it up. And so we did that. My friend Lindsay and I sat down and made a website in the basement of Fueled Collective Uptown. And we were like, here's how it's going to work. Okay. Every month we're going to pick a person and we're going to give them the money. Okay, that's it. And it could be anybody who's going through anything. Okay, I don't want this to just be about brain cancer. I want it to just be, about people, about the fact that we're all going through something hard and we don't get to pick it. We don't get to pick what it is or when it happens, which is so rude, but we can still help one another through it however we can. And she was like, I think that makes sense. We'll do it. And we did it. And it worked. And that first month we gave out $1,200, which felt like a lot. And that amount kept growing. And then it was time to do my taxes. And my accountant was like, so like, where's like the sales tax? And like, how are you going to pay tax on the money? I was like, oh, I gave the money away. So it shouldn't be a problem. It was a problem, obviously. Like I was not running a nonprofit. I was running a business where it gave away all the money. That's not smart. You should Google things. But like, I am a person who just wants to start things. If I would have looked up how to do it right, I would be like, oh my God, too much stuff. Too many things. I won't do it. But it was not hard to turn it into a nonprofit. There's a form. There's the letters on it are easy because it's easy. The longest part of that process was putting a stamp on and mailing it, which took 2 weeks. It took 2 minutes to fill out the form, 2 weeks to bring it to the front of Field Collective where the mailbox is.
Isn't that how it goes?
That's how it goes. So now we're a 501c3 nonprofit, and we have been doing this for almost 4 years. So every month we pick a person who's going through something hard. They're nominated on our website, and we tell their story without pity. Nobody that we work with is a sad story, and we give them money because money is so important when your life falls apart. And these are no strings attached grants. I don't care what you use it for. You know what you need that money for. I'm not going to make you show me, I'm not going to make you send me your light bill and I'll pay that for you. No, I'm going to give you the money. And you can go to Disneyland, you can go to the movies, you can pay your mortgage. I don't care. Like, life is hard. Like, you do what you need to do with it. So that's what we do. And it's retail based mainly. We get donations, but we sell apparel and produce events. And that's how we make most of our money.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And that's not something I get paid to do. I just want to get that out there. I don't get paid to do that. I pay people to do it, and I pay them like fair, like living wages, which is important to me. But that's just the thing that I do for Aaron.
What an amazing way to honor him.
Yeah, I always think like he would have done something really rad, like if I would have died. So I'm just kind of like, I hope it's good, but like I'm sure he'd have like some feedback. He's like really specific aesthetically, and I am not, as you can tell.
Designer,
he's very.
I find it interesting what you're saying about the money just going to the person.
Yeah,
you see this a lot where people feel the ability to judge how a person is using their resources in a given situation.
Yeah,
and that is wonderful. That is the capacity with which you're helping, because I know that you're absolutely right that it's things are not rational often when you're going through something like that, and it's it is, you need what you need.
You need what you need, and it's literally none of my business. So, and these are people who are nominated by people that they love, and often sometimes by strangers too, which is also pretty cool to like be able to identify that in somebody else, that they need help and that they are, I believe everybody is worthy of help. But it feels very good to be able to do something that, is really made up of a lot of small actions. Like our own fundraiser, when Aaron was dying, the average gift was like $10, like $10. And we got over $100,000. So like some people gave much more, but and some people gave like $1 or $2. But like the fact is, they did a small thing for the majority of people who donated were people we did not know.
Strangers.
But yeah. And so what I love about Still Kickin' is like that it is not about a specific thing. It really isn't. So it's not about cancer. It's not about like a specific affliction. It is about the fact that those two words are always going to mean something different to every single person who sees them. And I think that's the glory of it, really.
Yeah. So over there is a question vase, and I'd love to have you answer a question from it, please. These are from previous podcast guests and a few commenters on YouTube and a few other random places. Okay. So if you don't mind reading it aloud.
What is something people said would not work, but you got it to work? Thompson. Adarin Comey?
Adarin Comey, yeah.
Adarin Comey, okay. God. I mean, still kicking. Truly. Like, did the world need another nonprofit? Probably not. There were definitely better, I don't know. Everybody has an opinion about everything you do. So I find the best thing to do is to not ask anybody what their opinion is. I think the feedback that I got when I started, the unsolicited feedback was like, just slow down. Like, you know, I don't know, is this really the right time? Do you really want to be putting all this on your credit card? No, but I did. And lesson learned. And I'm so glad I did it the way that I did it, honestly. If we would have really thought it through, one, I would have not done it. I just wouldn't have done it. I would have been like, oh my gosh, you know what this is? This is going to be too much. And instead, when it was too much, we just rose to it. And so many people, I have to say my very favorite thing about Still Kickin' is that so many people volunteer and help us make it a thing. So many people. When I was like, I'm starting to make this thing. Will someone help me? So many people were like, I'll help you, dummy. Yes.
You have some wonderful people around.
I really do. Yeah. And that has been such a good reminder too, because it's very easy to, especially like to sort of self-isolate yourself, especially when you are in like a depressive state, to be like, nobody cares. Nobody like actually like likes me. Like people just liked my dead husband, but they don't like me and I'm so alone. And I definitely still have days where I like tell myself that story. And if I look up at all of the things that have been possible in my life, like I didn't do any of this alone. Like not one single thing did I do on my own.
And with that, my conversation with Nora is concluded. I hope you enjoyed the episode. And if you did, please do take a moment to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. I would greatly appreciate it. Do check out more at breakthetwitch.com/podcast024, where you can find all of the show notes from the episode, links to Nora's new book that's coming out next week, which you should definitely check out as well. Thanks again for listening. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll see you soon.